My best friend asked me to be his best man at his wedding. He loved his fiancée, worshipped her. But 2 weeks before the ceremony, I accidentally saw her at a restaurant, sitting on another man's lap. Instead of telling him everything right away, I prepared a special surprise for her. We've been friends since we were kids, Josh and I. Through elementary school food fights, high school heartbreaks, and the uncertain years of early adulthood. He was the guy who always kept his promises, who'd drive across town at 3 a.m. if you needed him, who put everyone else's needs before his own. When he met Lauren, something changed in him. I found the woman of my life, he told me over beers, his eyes bright with a certainty I'd never seen before. The way he described her, intelligent, compassionate, driven, made her sound perfect. Too perfect, maybe. I wanted to be happy for him. I really did. Josh deserved someone special. But from the first time I met Lauren at a dinner party 6 months into their relationship, something about her felt off. The way her smile never quite reached her eyes. How she'd check her phone when Josh wasn't looking. Little things that nagged at me but weren't enough to voice concerns over. You're just being protective, I told myself. No one will ever be good enough for your best friend. So I kept my doubts to myself and watched as their relationship blossomed. Josh proposed on their 1-year anniversary, a rooftop dinner overlooking the Chicago skyline, with the ring hidden in a champagne glass. Classic Josh, romantic to the core. When he asked me to be his best man, I accepted without hesitation. Who else would I pick, he said, clapping me on the shoulder. You're my brother in everything but blood. The wedding planning consumed the next 6 months. Lauren took charge, orchestrating every detail with military precision. The venue, an upscale resort outside the city. The flowers, white roses and blue hydrangeas. The guest list, carefully curated to include the right people and exclude the wrong ones. Josh went along with everything, happy to let her create her dream day. Whatever makes her happy makes me happy, he'd say, that lovesick smile never leaving his face. 2 weeks before the wedding, I was having dinner at Maggiano's, a high-end Italian restaurant downtown. It was a Thursday night, and I was meeting a client to discuss a marketing project. The meeting ran late, and my client had just left when I saw a familiar silhouette across the dimly lit restaurant. Lauren was sitting at a corner table, partially obscured by a decorative pillar. She wasn't alone. A man I'd never seen before had his arm around her waist, and she was leaning into him, laughing at something he'd said. As I watched, frozen mid-bite, she slid onto his lap, draped her arms around his neck, and kissed him deeply. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a friendly meeting. This wasn't an innocent catch-up with an old friend. This was intimacy, passion, betrayal. I pulled out my phone and discreetly took several photos. My hands were shaking so badly I had to steady them against the table. I didn't approach them or make a scene. This wasn't my battle to fight, at least not directly. After paying my bill, I circled around to get a better view without being seen. They were lost in their own world, oblivious to everything around them. I took a few more photos and, when the opportunity presented itself, a short video of them together. That night, I barely slept. The images of Lauren with that stranger kept replaying in my mind. How was I going to tell Josh? Would he even believe me? He was so in love, so convinced of her perfection that he might think I was lying out of jealousy or misplaced concern. The next morning, I decided to find out who the mystery man was before doing anything else. I had a friend who worked as a bartender at Maggiano's, so I sent him one of the clearer photos. Ever seen this guy? I texted. 3 hours later, my phone buzzed with his response. Yeah, he's a semi-regular. Think his name is Ethan. Usually comes in with business types, but lately he's been meeting that woman. They getting too cozy, huh? With just a first name to go on, I dug deeper. Lauren had mentioned an ex-boyfriend named Ethan in passing once, describing him as the one who got away before I found what I really needed. Josh had been sitting right there when she said it, and he'd smiled, assuming she meant him. Through some social media sleuthing and a mutual friend who knew Lauren before she met Josh, I confirmed my suspicion. Ethan was her ex-boyfriend who had moved to California for a job 3 years ago. Apparently, he'd recently returned to Chicago. Her perfect fiancé was her ex, the one who'd left her. They had dated for nearly 2 years before he relocated. According to my source, the breakup had devastated Lauren, but she'd started a new life afterward. Only now he was back, and clearly old flames were being rekindled. I knew Josh wouldn't believe me without concrete evidence. I couldn't just walk up to him and say, "Hey, your fiancée is cheating on you with her ex." He would demand proof, and even then, his love for her might blind him to the truth. So I decided to play the long game. First, I needed to act normal around both of them. Any change in my behavior might tip Lauren off, and I couldn't risk that. I attended the rehearsal dinner, laughed at all the right moments, and gave a toast to the happy couple that made Lauren raise her glass to me in appreciation. If only she knew what was coming. I contacted the wedding planner under the pretense of preparing a surprise for the newlyweds. I requested a screen be set up at the reception venue, right where everyone would see it. I told her it was for a video montage celebrating their love. And in a way, that wasn't a lie. I want to show their journey together, I explained, from their first date to now. The wedding planner was thrilled with the idea. "How thoughtful," she gushed. "I'll make sure it's all set up perfectly." "What a wonderful friend you are." Yes, I thought. A wonderful friend who's about to expose a liar and save his best friend from a lifetime of deception. The wedding day arrived. The ceremony was held in a garden overlooking Lake Michigan, white chairs arranged in neat rows, an archway of flowers framing the spot where the couple would exchange vows. Josh stood at the altar, nervousness and joy battling on his face. When Lauren walked down the aisle in her flowing white dress, tears welled in his eyes. I stood beside him, the loyal best man, the keeper of secrets. Lauren's smile was radiant as she approached, but I knew the truth behind that perfect facade. Throughout the ceremony, I maintained my composure, handed over the rings at the right moment, and applauded with everyone else when they were pronounced husband and wife. The reception was held in a grand ballroom, crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over the elegantly decorated tables. After dinner, the maid of honor and I gave our speeches. Mine was heartfelt, focusing on Josh's character and how lucky Lauren was to have found him. I saw her shift uncomfortably in her seat when I emphasized the importance of honesty and loyalty in a marriage. Then came the first dance, the cake cutting, all the traditional moments that make up a wedding reception. Through it all, I waited patiently, knowing that my moment was approaching. As the evening progressed and the alcohol flowed freely, the MC announced, "And now, ladies and gentlemen, a special gift from the best man." The lights dimmed, and all eyes turned to the large screen at the front of the room. The video began with a slow fade-in to soft music. First came the photos that Josh had provided me with, candid shots of them laughing together, hiking in national parks, celebrating birthdays and holidays. Their engagement photos, professional and polished. Snapshots of their life together that told the story of a perfect couple. And then, a transition. The music changed to something more ominous. On screen appeared the date, exactly 2 weeks before the wedding, followed by images from the restaurant. Lauren sitting intimately close to Ethan. Lauren on his lap. Lauren kissing him passionately. The ballroom fell silent. I had included text overlays with the date and time, proving these weren't old photos from before she met Josh. These were recent. These were damning. The camera caught Lauren's face as it transformed from confusion to recognition to horror. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again like a fish out of water. This is fake," she finally screamed, standing up so abruptly that her chair toppled backward. "Photoshopped. He's lying. I stood calmly from my seat. It's not fake, Lauren. And you know it. All eyes turned to Josh. He hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. He stared at the frozen image on the screen, his bride in another man's arms, his face unreadable. Finally, he stood. The room was so quiet you could hear the ice shifting in the water glasses. He walked over to Lauren, looked directly into her eyes, and asked simply, "Is this true?" She began stammering explanations. It wasn't what it looked like. Ethan was just a friend. I was jealous of their happiness. I had manipulated the images. But it was too late. The damage was done. The doubt was planted, and Josh was too smart, too perceptive not to see the truth in her panicked denials. He turned away from her, walked straight through the crowd of stunned guests, and left the ballroom without another word. The wedding imploded in spectacular fashion after that. Lauren's parents tried to do damage control, suggesting everyone enjoy the rest of the evening while the couple sorted things out. But the guests began leaving in awkward groups, whispering among themselves about what they'd witnessed. Lauren fled to the bridal suite, mascara streaming down her face. I stayed behind, calmly answering questions from shocked family members, explaining that I had only done what a true friend would do, prevented Josh from entering a marriage based on lies. The annulment was finalized within a week. Josh moved in with me temporarily, alternating between gratitude for my intervention and grief over what he'd lost, or rather, what he'd thought he had. Lauren. She lost everything. Her perfect wedding turned into a public humiliation. Her reputation among their social circle was irreparably damaged. Even Ethan disappeared when the scandal broke, unwilling to deal with the fallout of their exposed affair. I heard through mutual connections that she tried to explain herself to Josh, showing up at his workplace, flooding his phone with tearful messages. He blocked her number and asked security not to let her into the building. 3 months later, Josh was still healing but beginning to date again, more cautiously this time. I'd saved my friend from a lifetime with someone who didn't deserve him, but I sometimes wondered if exposing Lauren so publicly had been the right choice. Could I have shown Josh the evidence privately? Probably. Would it have been as effective? I'm not sure. What I do know is this: secrets have a way of coming to light, and betrayal always comes with a price. Lauren paid hers in front of everyone she knew. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't just exposing the truth, it's watching someone's carefully constructed lies collapse around them, leaving nothing but the harsh reality they created for themselves. 6 months after the wedding that wasn't, I ran into Ethan at a coffee shop downtown. I almost didn't recognize him. He'd grown a beard and looked thinner, more haggard than the confident man I'd seen with Lauren that night at Maggiano's. He recognized me immediately. I expected him to leave or confront me angrily, but instead, he approached my table with an unexpected request. "Can I sit down? Just for a minute." Curiosity got the better of me. I gestured to the empty chair across from me, and he slid into it, clutching his coffee cup like a lifeline. "I know who you are," he said. "You're Josh's friend. The best man." I nodded, waiting. "I should hate you for what you did, but I can't." He stared into his coffee. "You showed me who she really is." The irony wasn't lost on me. "I wasn't trying to do you any favors." "I know. But you did." He looked up then, meeting my eyes with unexpected candor. "Lauren told me she was single when we reconnected. Said she'd broken off an engagement months earlier because the guy was controlling, jealous. I had no idea she was 2 weeks away from marrying him." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Lauren hadn't just been cheating on Josh, she'd been lying to Ethan too, creating elaborate fictions to maintain both relationships. When I saw the video at the reception, I was in the back. Lauren had convinced me to come as a friend of the bride. I realized how deep her deception went. He shook his head. She would have married Josh while keeping me on the side. "Who does that?" I sat back, processing this new information. Lauren was more calculating than I'd realized, orchestrating an intricate web of lies that served her desires at everyone else's expense. I'm moving back to California next week, Ethan continued. Fresh start. But I wanted to thank you, as strange as that sounds. What you did was brutal, but necessary. After he left, I sat for a long time, turning our conversation over in my mind. Lauren hadn't just betrayed Josh, she'd manipulated everyone around her, creating separate realities tailored to what each person wanted to hear. The scope of her deception was breathtaking. I never told Josh about my encounter with Ethan. Some details would only cause more pain, and he was finally beginning to move forward. Last month, he started seeing someone new, a veterinarian he met when he adopted a rescue dog. She seems genuine, kind, transparent in ways Lauren never was. When they're together, I watch carefully for those red flags I ignored before, but so far, I've seen none. As for me, I sometimes wonder about the role I played in this drama. Was I right to wait, to plan such a public exposure? The wedding cost Josh's parents thousands of non-refundable dollars. The emotional toll on everyone involved was immense. There are those in our social circle who think I went too far, that I could have found a more private way to reveal the truth. Maybe they're right. But when I remember the calculated way Lauren deceived Josh, how she would have led him into a marriage built on lies while maintaining her relationship with Ethan, I find it hard to regret my actions. Sometimes the most effective medicine is also the most bitter. Last week, I heard Lauren had left Chicago, moved to Seattle for a fresh start where her reputation hadn't preceded her. Perhaps she'll learn from this experience, become more honest in her relationships. Or perhaps she'll simply become more careful about getting caught. Life has largely returned to normal. Josh and I still meet for beers on Thursdays, talk about sports and work and the future. We rarely mention Lauren or the wedding, though sometimes I catch him looking at me with a mixture of gratitude and lingering sadness, as if thanking me for saving him while mourning what could have been if only she'd been the person he thought she was. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just break trust, it shatters your perception of reality. Everything you believed about a person, about your relationship, about your shared past becomes questionable. Did she ever love him? Was any of it real? These are questions Josh still struggles with, questions that may never have satisfying answers. I don't regret exposing Lauren's deception. But I do sometimes wonder about the ripple effects of that moment, how one action, calculated and deliberate as it was, changed so many lives irrevocably. Josh saved from a fraudulent marriage. Lauren's reputation in ruins. Ethan disillusioned but wiser. And me, forever the friend who destroyed a wedding to protect someone I love.